So a very good morning and welcome to a very wet and very rainy Lake District. Come up to Baitson this morning. We're going to take some photographs of a very iconic spot for landscape photography. Hopefully this weather's going to clean up fairly quickly. Let's just hang around and hope for the best. Well, I've managed to battle my way down a boggy slope. I managed to find some gravel, a little bit of steady ground just to put the tripod on. The rain's eased off a little bit. There's still a little bit of drizzle about, but the rain has eased off a little bit now. And I'm managing to find something using a cluster of stones as a foreground interest. If I take the lens cap off, I can see through the viewfinder. We've got a cluster of 3 stones on the left-hand side. There is 2 stones off towards the right-hand side of this frame. We've got Baitson stretching out in the distance and one of the Langdale pikes just shrouded in a little bit of low cloud in the background. I don't know how to shoot this landscape or portrait, so I'm going to take a couple of minutes and just figure out the best way of shooting this. I kind of like it landscape. There's not a lot of sky up there. There's a lot of low cloud, so let's have a play around and just find the best orientation to take this photograph. Alright, so the rain has now really eased off. There is no real rain falling, which is great. So I've been able to throw a polarizing filter on the front of this lens. Now, I've opted to go for a vertical portrait orientation for this photograph. There is a cluster of 3 rocks just in front of the lens, and that's where I've focused the lens for this photograph. They're the main feature of this image, so really I wanted to throw focus on there, and I'm down at f11, so I'm going to get enough depth of field to get the background reasonably in focus anyway, but it's quite far off, so if it's a little bit soft, it doesn't really matter. The subject of this photograph, like I say, is the 3 rocks. So we're down at f11 and ISO 200. Now, I've gone so narrow and I've tried to slow the shutter speed down a little bit just to smooth out some of the ripples in the water. There's a little bit of a breeze blowing around and I just kind of want to smooth them out, so a slightly longer exposure will allow me to do that. So that photograph is now taken. I'll show it to you. So I've just tried something. I've taken 9, 10, maybe even 11 photographs just as a bit of a test, just to try and do a panorama of this entire scene. So I started off shooting low, shooting some of the beach area in front of me, moving up to the boulders, and then finally sort of shooting the mountains and the clouds in the sky above, just to sort of see if it would work out okay. So if it does, here's a panorama of maybe 10, 11, maybe even 12 photographs.
Twenty-four's too young to feel this old. Now getting any wiser, still not doing what I'm told. If this year's just like the last one, it's getting harder.
So I've just spent the last 20 minutes against a wall with a fence at the end of it, doing the cliche Baitson photographs. I saw no sense in videoing it because, well, there was another photographer about and I was a bit shy. But it's all photographs you've ever seen before, but I just kind of wanted to do my own take on it. So I think there's 3 photographs from that spot that I'm going to show you. They all had their own merits, they all had their own flaws. There's just no light, it's extremely grey, it's extremely windy, and it's really, really wet. So that's just kind of the photos that we've got. So here's 3 photographs of Baitson that you've probably seen before elsewhere. But look at this, there is a bridge and a stream. And I think, I might be wrong, there's some waterfalls that way. So we've got to see if we can check them out. Hopefully we'll get some waterfalls along this stream in the Lake District. Here's 3 photographs. So, the rain's back, and the wind really has picked up. But look, flowing water, a stream, loads of little rapids, and hopefully there might be a waterfall or something resembling a waterfall a little bit further down. But what a pleasant surprise it was just to walk through that gate into this really quite vast landscape view behind me. Let's hope we can find something just to do a long exposure photograph of, using all this running water to my side. It'd be nice if the wind would go and the rain with it. But I suppose that's landscape photography, and these are just the conditions on the day, so here's what it is. It's a good laugh while you're doing it. Let's get stuck in. Let's go see what we can find a little bit further down this little stream. Okay, so maybe a 2-minute walk down the stream from where I was sat on that boulder. Come across this really awesome little scene. So there is something of a waterfall trickling down on my right hand side. There is a tree just nestled against the stream, just in front of the waterfall. I think we're maybe going to make that the subject. But in the wider sort of landscape, there is a cluster of trees just off to my right hand side above the singular tree. And there's this rock formation above me as well. So I wonder if there may be 1 or 2 photographs we can do, incorporating the waterfall and punching in, singling out the tree, and then maybe something with a slightly wider landscape in it. Again, we're back on the boggy ground, and there's a lot of deer mess around. So hopefully that doesn't get all over me, my shooting bag, my trousers, my coat. Well, let's take a couple of photographs of this beautiful little waterfall scene here. All right, so I have my composition composed now. So we're shooting straight down this waterfall. There is a cluster of 3 really big rocks that are creating a lot of turbulence and a lot of this immediate waterfall in the foreground. I've actually focused on those. There is a cluster of smaller rocks just in the foreground, obviously using the depth of field and focusing on them rocks. We'll get them in focus as well. Just let me put my hood up, it's really annoying me. I've kind of blanked out the big cluster of trees in the background. They're in there, but they're not fully in there, if that makes any sort of sense. They're just in the background, so there's a green backdrop to this, and there's a big boulder just off to the right-hand side of the tree. So I've got the ND64 turned on in the camera. We're shooting at f5.6, 3.2, 4 seconds, ISO 200. Let's get this photograph taken because the rain's really coming down once again. I'm hoping this is going to work out really quite nicely. Here it is. So I'm still standing in the same spot, but if you look above my head, there is a break in the clouds. Hopefully that means a little bit of light may start bleeding through into the landscape. Unfortunately, where I'm standing now, it is still really kind of raining, but a little patch of blue sky above my head, and that always gives a little bit of hope. A little bit of light may come through and light up the landscape very soon. So I'm going to hang around here, see if anything else catches my eye, maybe looking that way down the valley. Hopefully a little bit of light comes through and we get quite a nice landscape photograph with it. So, moved away from the waterfall area, come back to Tarn Lake. A lot of the low clouds that was around earlier on has kind of blown away, so I just wanted to take a photograph of the tree line sticking out on a little peninsula on the lake just off to my left hand side, but as well as the mountain in the background. So it's nice to just see a little bit more of that than we did earlier on. So I think the plan now, I just noticed on the map that we're only a few miles away from Wastwater and Scarfell Pike. In fact, Scarfell Pike is literally just the other side of this hill off to my right hand side. So I thought, stuff it, let's go for a walk around Wastwater, just see if any of this cloud does blow away. We'll be able to get a photograph of Ewbarrow, Great Gable, Scarfell Pike, any of the 3 mountains in that valley. So let's jump back in the car, hopefully get dried up and a little bit warmer than we are right now. Let's go visit my brother at Scarfell Pike.
Too young.
So after the sketchiest 31-mile drive I've ever had in my life, welcome to Wasdale. Wastwater just behind me, Scarfell Pike, Ewbarrow and Great Gable way off in the distance, shrouded by low cloud. So that little slideshow that you just saw, I decided just to take a few photos of the old plastic fantastic 40 to 150, just picking out some details in the hillsides around me, and I don't know how well they're going to turn out, but it was a bit of fun doing it. You can see with all of the low cloud we've got, we're not really going to get a big landscape photo of the mountains today. So I'm going to go for a little walk around, a little bit of a wander around, and just see if there is one photograph to be had today, one landscape photo to be had. You hear a lot of times that you can't do landscape photography with micro four thirds. You need a full frame camera. Bollocks. This thing today, in the Lake District, landscape photography is done absolutely fantastically. If anybody ever says that you need a full frame camera for landscape photography, call them out, they're lying. So I've had a little bit of a wander around now and poked this camera in a few little holes, and there seems to be something I may be able to do with this island behind me. There's a lot of rocks in the shore of the lake, and I'm kind of wondering if we do something long exposure using the live ND on this camera, we may be able to get something that would work, but I just kind of need to figure out the backdrop. I don't know whether to use the scree slope as the backdrop or get something looking a little bit further down the valley. In all honesty, I'm leaning more towards the scree slope than the valley, purely because of the colours and the textures in the background, and the low cloud would kind of shroud the valley anyway. Let's have a think, let's have a look, let's have a walk around and just see if this is going to work. But there's an idea developing, and I just want to see if I can develop it a little bit more before I start committing myself to taking the photograph. But I like the idea of using that island on a long exposure with Wastwater on all the little black rocks around the shoreline. So I'm not going to lie, this photograph has been a bit of a struggle, and I don't know if I'm all that happy with it. I've tried a vertical orientation, I've tried a horizontal orientation. I'm trying to go for a high key black and white long exposure photograph. I'm not sure if it's working. I'm going to show you a horizontal and a vertical, and just let me know what you think down below. To me, they just didn't work, but that's photography, isn't it? There's a little bit of trial and error involved sometimes, so just let me know what you think of these two photos down below. Alright, so for the final photograph from today's adventure around the Lake District, I've spun the camera around 180 degrees-ish. I've moved it a little bit, but it's spun around. I want to get a photograph of all of the low cloud blowing across this scree slope. So we've got a big boulder sort of acting as an anchor in the foreground. We've got the shoreline of the lake just creeping around, but really I just want to get a photograph of all of this low cloud creeping across this scene. So we're f5.6, a 50th of a second, ISO 200, using a 2-second timer on this camera. Here is this final photograph, and I'm going to show it to you. Well, that was an absolute faff. The microphone battery died on me, but by sheer good luck and fortune, Amazon delivered this. Some point last night, I woke up to an Amazon ticket through the door saying it was in the blue bin. So Full Aim have sent me a wireless microphone kit. So it's 2 wireless transmitters and a receiver that goes on the camera. So absolute good fortune. This is the first time I'm using it, so I suppose we'll see what the audio quality is like. That Synco microphone that I've been using for a while, I've had for 3 years now. The battery's just about had it, so just kind of sheer good fortune that this arrived just in time. I'm guessing the battery really has had it. I'm used to getting a full day's use out of the microphone without turning it off. That is the first time the battery has died. Hopefully this is working fine. So thank you very much for watching today's little jolly around the Lake District. I really wanted to set out today and prove that you don't need a big centre to do landscape photography. I know there's a lot of myth out there surrounding this, that you need a full frame camera, all the megapixels. Nah, you don't. This thing, absolutely fine. If you have enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up and a like. It really does help bring viewers to see my channel. It helps spread the content around a little bit further. And if you're new here, why not drop me a subscribe? Buttons down below. I would always appreciate that. Until the next time, I will love you and leave you and say peace and goodbye. They're watching me over there.